like to call to order the November 15th, 2021 regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone who is here with us this evening, as well as those of you who are viewing remotely. I'd like to announce the board held an executive session November 1st regarding a legal matter, and just prior to this meeting regarding personnel and student discipline. Board members, with the agenda before you, are there any changes to the agenda as presented? Okay. All right, then at this time, Dr. O'Donnell is going to review some housekeeping items related to our hybrid format.
Okay. Thank you, Amber. For our audience this evening, 30 minutes will be provided at the beginning of the meeting for public comment for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening public comment after board business is completed or during the next meeting. Each individual will be limited to comments of 2 minutes as time permits for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item as required by school code. This approach also allows for comments to be informed by the presentation and board's discussion of those respective items. During the meeting, the IT help desk is available if those viewing remotely encounter technical difficulties. If so, you may email itsupport@scasd.org or give them a call at 814-231-7743. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. O'Donnell. At this time, we'll have a roll call of board members present.
Dr. Bader. Here. Ms. Bedell.
Here.
Ms. Brandt.
Here.
Ms. Concepcion.
Here.
Dr. Duffy.
Here.
Mr. Fazzard.
Here.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Here.
Mr. Leos.
Here.
Ms. Sidney.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Concepcion, you're not coming through like the rest of the line.
Yeah, that's all.
On the vertical part of the mic, you might be muted. Not that part, but she's on. I see the red light.
No, I mean, that was off.
Yeah.
Is that working now? Yes, great.
There you go.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, so before moving on with the agenda this evening, I'd like to recognize 4 individuals here who have dedicated a great deal of their personal time and commitment to the betterment of not only our students, but our whole district and surrounding community. So this evening, these individuals are ending their tenure with us as members of the State College Area School District Board, and they leave behind them an indelible mark. Collectively, they have served for 40 years. We are so fortunate to have had their expertise and guidance through some of the toughest challenges, and they have done so with professionalism, style, and grace. I personally am so grateful for their unwavering commitment and for how each of them has always prioritized the needs of kids in our community through their work on the board. The State College Area School District and our board are better because of their involvement. So I'd like to speak for a moment about each of them and some of the accomplishments of them in order of their tenure. Mr. David Hutchinson became a board member in 2005. In his work on the board, David has served as a member and chair of the Culture, Climate, and Learning Committee, has been our district's liaison to the Pennsylvania School Board Association and our legislative liaison. He first served on the PSBA Board of Directors from 2011 to 2014, and he has worked on promoting public policy and fostering relationships with legislators from both parties in a number of regional and statewide PSBA leadership positions. He has served as both vice president and president of PSBA and on the PSBA governing board. He was an advocate for the successful state high referendum in 2014. Although David has a quiet demeanor, his passion for public education, for democratic approaches in schools, and for student voice is very strong. The board and the administrative team thank you for your service, David, and you'll be missed. Mr. Jim Leos joined the board in 2009. During his tenure, he has served as board vice president from 2011 and 12 and from 2014 to 2018. He has been a longtime chair of the Communications Committee, a member of Finance and Audit Committee, and a board representative to the Citizens Advisory Committee for Technology and to the Ctc Advisory Board. Jim has served on the district's negotiating team as well. Jim has always kept us on our toes in regard to effective and up-to-date use of technology. Jim is also very passionate about sustainability and has represented the district in several initiatives in the community, including the working group for the solar power purchase agreement. Jim was a very strong advocate for the successful statewide referendum, having served as the board communications chair during that era. The board and the administrative team thank you for your service, Jim. You'll be greatly missed. Mr. Scott Fazzard became a member of the board in 2013. Scott has brought a valuable skill set in finance and human resources, stemming from his professional background, and these skills have served the district very well. He has chaired the Finance and Audit Committee for many years and has served as a board member of the State College Area School District Education Foundation. Scott also serves on the Facilities and Grounds Committee, is a board representative to the Citizens Advisory Committee for Finance, and a member of the district's negotiating team. Scott has never hesitated to speak up on behalf of constituents with thoughtful contributions to board discussions and in advocating for ensuring that the district has the resources it needs to meet student needs and to plan for the future financially. The board and the administrative team thank you for your service, Scott. You'll be greatly missed. Okay, our final departing board member, Ms. Laurie Bedell, joined the board in 2017. She serves as chair of the Policy Development Committee and as a member of the Communications Committee, Facilities and Grounds Committee, and as the board representative to the Citizens Advisory Committee for Facilities. Laurie has also served as the legislative liaison for the district and is a staunch advocate for policy and legislation that benefit public schools. As a faculty member in the field of communications, Laurie has contributed her thoughtful and effective communication skills to the board, providing a valuable perspective to our work. Laurie's passion for education and for the well-being of students will be very missed. The board and the administrative team would like to thank you for your service, Laurie. So while this may be a departure from their seats on the board, this is by no means a farewell to these four amazing individuals. Their contributions at the district and community levels have made a tremendous impact that will last for years to come, and they should feel so proud to have truly made a difference in so many lives. Again, thank you all. There are not enough words to convey our appreciation. We'll miss you all so much. Yeah. So, Jim, you said you'd like to
Did you want to say anything, Dave? Oh, yeah. I was going to say age before beauty. So thanks. As most of you know, I came onto the board during some troubled times. Not that the current times aren't troubled either. We worked through state budget cuts, and we put together a communications plan for the high school referendum. And I think back in light of the last few months, we put together fairly early on an anytime, anywhere learning plan, which would leverage the internet and remote learning. And we thought it would only be used for snow days. So I guess that was fairly prescient at the time, and thank Jim Kowalczyk for working on that one. One of the best things we ever did was hire Dr. O'Donnell. There's no doubt. This guy is amazing, and we are so lucky to have him. Oh, we worked hard on the inclusive excellence policy, and I think that'll be one of our lasting legacies. And David really did yeoman's work championing that, and I really appreciate that, David. When I look back, I can't believe that we renovated 6 elementary schools, and the last 3 of which achieved a LEED Platinum. Couple that with the LEED Gold high school, and I'm very proud of our sustainability accomplishments, and I'm looking forward to signing the solar power purchase agreement finally, and that would go a long way. Thanks to all my former and current board members. We've been blessed with strong leadership from Rick Medore, Ann McLaughlin, Jim Kowalczyk, Penny Fishbane, Amber, and Amy. And we've really had some good teams of 10. Thanks to the district administration over the years for putting up with an at times unruly school board. Many thanks to our teachers and our staff and our bus drivers and our cafeteria workers who make this the most special place every day and every year. Thanks to our community for your undying support of public education. And finally, I'd like to thank my family and my wife Gloria for putting up with my crazy schedule for the last 12 years. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Anyone else have any comments to make? Okay.
Sorry to grandstand.
No. Yeah. Oh, Jim, we're going to miss you so much. All right. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to call on Dr. O'Donnell for his update.
Thanks, Amber. Each year at graduation, when I introduce the board, I do mention the sacrifices you make on behalf of our community to fulfill this important role within our school district. And the role of governance is sometimes painful. And I think all of you come to us with very different opinions and thoughts about the many different things we do in the district. But I do think, we come together because of our mission to support kids and what we're trying to do to help them develop into having successful futures beyond here. So thank you so much on behalf of all of our employees here. Thanks for all your sacrifices and what you've done for us, especially the past year and a half. Nobody, I think everybody in our community said, I didn't sign up for this. And you saw it, you've been seeing it through. So thank you very much. So I'm going to move on to, before I get into the update that we attached to the agenda, I'd like to celebrate some students to start off. First, can I please have the members of the boys golf team come forward up here in front of the board? I'm going to ask Mrs. Concepcion to step out. We have commendations on behalf of the board. So the State High boys golf team won its first ever state championship last Monday, and I guess 2 Mondays ago. We want to provide them with our board's congratulations this evening. On behalf of the board, Mrs. Concepcion is going to provide each of you with a board commendation. The boys took home the gold in the PIAA 3A team championships at Heritage Hills Golf Resort in York. Senior John Olson was the top little lion, shooting a 70 to finish 1 under par. I saw him on the way in and said, hey, you're a pretty good ice hockey goalie too. Other members of the team were Max Wager, Luke Janik, Joey Sable, and Thomas Hay. And congratulations to the team members as well as our coaches, Greg Wilson and Jim Shaper, for a fantastic season. So let's give it up for these guys. And before you sit down, I'll take care of the coaches. You want to take care of the guys? Jim, make sure Greg gets his. Don't screw that up. Thank you very much. Great to see you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Luke Janet? Congratulations. Joey? And I have Thomas here.
All right. Guys, thanks for coming over this evening.
Thank you. Congratulations.
I'll see you at the rink. So next, I'd like Angela and Lorenzo to please come forward. We're going to celebrate 2 State High students who have achieved something that so very few people do. These 2 State High students recently accomplished a pretty extremely rare feat: perfect advanced placement exam scores with every possible point earned. And I'll give you a little bit of backdrop. Angela Abram was one of 335 students worldwide who aced the computer science principles exam out of 119,144 test takers. After my heart, I used to teach computer science. Lorenzo Frappoli joined 219 students with a flawless portfolio for the drawing exam from the 18,345 worldwide who submitted work. So congratulations to them and their teachers, James Burns with Computer Science Principles and Mari Irwin Fermanack with AP Studio Art, as well as their families for this impressive achievement. So congratulations. Yeah, you guys.
Okay.
Does she have a summer internship yet? Just checking.
So thanks so much for coming over tonight. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So now I'd like to transition to the update that we've attached to your agenda. In the update, we start out with some reflections on information that we shared in regard to the current status of the state's mask mandate. Depending on what transpires there, as per our health and safety plan, we would look to, if this becomes a local decision as per our plan, what we would do is look to guidance from the CDC, obviously look at local conditions, look to the health and safety team for professional feedback from experts within our community, and if any status changes were to occur, we'd then communicate with families. You know, obviously, I don't have an answer right now as to when might we make adjustments, and I think we talked to the team about that, and right now, you know, we just don't think right now is the time. But we'll continue that conversation. We do meet weekly, and we look to the head of infectious disease at the university, as well as 2 pediatricians from our largest medical practices in our community, and that's who we continue to huddle up with. We're grateful to them for their commitment and the fact that they're embroiled in this, looking at it systemically, and what our you know, our priorities to have kids in school on a daily basis, keep them in school, and we're anxious to see how we move forward at this time with the vaccines. As you see, we've highlighted with students. We know that we understand through CVIM there was a pretty good response there, and then you know, obviously some of the frustrations isn't just kids getting sick, it's the quarantining as well. So we have, excuse me, a little bit more data in here for you. And at the end, I just want to share, you know, with the past year and a third, heading into the year, we weren't so sure how things were going to look this year. Right now, we know more than we knew then. We did take some steps this summer with your support of, you know, increasing supports in the district, including tutoring. And what we're doing is reflecting on the first quarter of the year. And we'd like to share an update at CCL and then come back because we really believe we need to put some additional supports in place. What they look like, just not so sure yet of all of them, and some may need, likely need board action. This will include, Gene Knaus is pulling the report from our universal screening, the BASC tool, which assesses emotional well-being of students, and so we'll bring that forward. You know, I had an opportunity to sit on a meeting with the high school leadership team, members of our counseling office, as well as our ACE support tutoring center, to just see how things were going and what they were grappling with, and there's a lot of positive exchanges going on, and what we're just trying to focus in on what's the best next step on top of what we've done thus far. So that's forthcoming. So at this time, I'll open it up to any questions and do my best to field those. I don't know if Jean's online there. I didn't look to see if she's on the Zoom.
She's not.
Okay. Hey, Laura.
Laura?
Yeah, this may be jumping the gun a little bit, but I just wanted to check. You mentioned as looking, when you're looking, circling up and looking at things, talking with key stakeholders. And I'm wondering, if there's any way that parents, maybe through PTSO or something like that, can,
Yeah.
because parents often may be thinking, gee, this would be helpful, if there's a way that they can get information into you in terms of
Right,
that.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
often I mean, the people in the building are the ones that
Yeah.
primarily we talk to, but.
I mean, one of the biggest challenges we're having throughout the district right now is students and behavior from an emotional standpoint. And the capacity that we put in place just isn't sufficient. So, I mean, right now, to be honest with you, I feel like we're playing whack-a-mole with problems right now. And so I don't know how, since parents aren't living in the buildings, but as far as academic supports, Laurel, sure, I mean, I don't know how much outreach we'll do to see what do you want type things. I don't,
Yeah.
this Wednesday, I meet with the whole administrative team to check in and, the short list, I think, is going to be around capacity at the elementary level for behaviors and social emotional supports. And then academically, I think that's really going to be evolving throughout the year. Specifically, right now, we're looking at the end of the first quarter and how secondary students are doing and comparing that back with 2019, just to give you a sense of what we're seeing in the scope of differences. Because we didn't spend the summer reworking curriculum. We wanted our faculty to take the time out. And so they're trying to move forward, patch gaps or holes, and that's challenging. They're trying to give students opportunities to resubmit work or revisit assessments, and that's an extra workload trying to figure that out too. So we'll have more of an update at CCL, and I'll have key team members with me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? All right.
So thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right, David and Laurie, any legislative updates?
Before I do that, could I have I'd like to share a communication.
Sure.
Is this on?
It is.
Okay, I have to get really, really close to this. What's that? Oh, all right. So I just wanted to let you all know that yesterday in Harrisburg, at a robustly attended brunch and ceremony, our wonderful board president was honored as one of Pennsylvania's outstanding elected women. It was a great event.
Thank you.
And Amber Concepcion spoke before accepting her honor and paid great tribute to her work, to the work of our district. And I just was so happy to be there, and I just couldn't be more proud to have been her friend and colleague for these last 4 years. Congratulations,
Thank
Ann.
you. Thank you, Laurie.
So legislative update.
Yep.
David, do you want to start?
You can start.
Okay. So I think most primarily, there's a landmark case that challenges how Pennsylvania pays for public education. It is underway as of this past Friday. The lawsuit, which was brought 7 years ago by 6 school districts, alleges Pennsylvania's school funding is both inadequate and inequitable, violating the state constitution. At the heart of the case are the wide gaps in resources between school districts, the product of a long ingrained funding system that relies more heavily on local taxes, that plaintiffs say discriminates against children and burdens taxpayers in lower wealth communities. Lower Merion, for example, and this is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, has more than $31,000 to spend per student compared to William Penn, which has $18,000 per student. So plaintiffs contend that the funding system disproportionately harms children of color. Half of Pennsylvania's black children and 40% of Hispanic children live in the poorest 20% of districts. And there will be monthly rallies in Harrisburg, and community members are encouraged to join in. And I know Amber was at the Capitol on Friday.
Yep, and Jackie Huff went with me as well, so one of our incoming board members.
Right. So next, House Bill 1660 passed the House in September. It's legislation that would have placed numerous overly restrictive and burdensome limitations on locally elected school boards to make decisions regarding all school district operations, including the health and safety of students and staff, and alternative educational arrangements in the event of an emergency. As amended by the Senate Education Committee this week, the proposal separates emergencies into an infectious disease category and a category for all other emergencies, and imposes different requirements based on these categories of emergencies. It limits the number of days for which temporary emergency provisions may be made to just 21 days, and also includes various mandated processes a board must follow in order to extend a temporary emergency. So that's something to keep your eye on. In the Senate, Senate and House Education Committees oppose proposed regulations for charter schools. The Education Committee of the Senate and House have each sent letters to the Independent Regulatory Review Commission opposing the Department of Education's proposed regulations for charter and cyber charter schools. Both letters emphasize that the regulations would have a negative impact on charter schools and that any changes relating to charter schools should be made by the General Assembly and not through regulation. So that's concerning. House Resolution 152 urges the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Department of Transportation to address the school bus driver shortage by reforming the CDL requirements to reduce the burden of obtaining and maintaining a school bus endorsement. So that's being worked on. The Senate Appropriations Committee amended and approved House Bill 1642, which moves the $5 million supplemental scholarship program for students attending economically disadvantaged schools from the Opportunity Scholarship Tax Credit Program to the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program. The bill maintains the amount of tax credits available under the current law at $280 million by moving the $5 million set aside for economically disadvantaged schools from the OSTC to the EITC. The amount of tax credits available from the EITC will increase from $225 million to $230 million, and the amount available under the OSTC will decrease from $55 million to $50 million. EITC eligibility is increased by revising the term economically disadvantaged school to be defined as a school in which at least 51% of students attending the immediately preceding school year received an EITC scholarship of at least $1,000. Currently, the threshold is set at a minimum of 75%. There are more details to be looked at on the PSBA website. And then we know about the school mask order. I probably don't need to get into that. But also there are Senate bills that were introduced that would prohibit mask mandates in schools and vaccination mandates by employers. And Senate bills were also introduced that would mandate the display of the PA and US Constitution preambles in the entrances of every school. And that is all I have.
Oh, thank you. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And there was more, but
In fact, yeah, I thought, thank you, Laurie, that was great, and you hit the biggest highlights, and yet there is actually so much going on in Harrisburg right now that there are a couple other things here I just want to add on. I think everyone here is familiar with House Bill 1332. That's the one that requires schools to post on its website all curriculum. We believe that legislation has now been amended to the point that we can live with it, so the PSBA is now neutral on it. Originally, it was really onerous in terms of the level of detail that they were requesting, and now it's to the point, the kind of things that we would post on automatically. One of the issues that came up in the Legislative Advisory Committee was for some smaller districts that don't have this kind of online presence that we have, what is going to require them just to post on the bare minimum. You know, that may be a real stretch for them to do that. House Bill 488 amends the Crimes Code to expand the offense for endangering the welfare of children, and we were able to get that amended so that does not apply to people other than parents. Senate Bill 224 allows out-of-state candidates who have completed state-approved education prep. This allows us to better address issues of not having sufficient, filling all the positions that we have available, that we now can hire people from outside of state. Senate Bill 527 PSBA opposes that bill due to the unprecedented, unrestricted expansion of ETIC and other programs that use the automatic escalator that would in fact automatically increase the degree of tax credits allocated by 25% without any required action by the legislature through the state budget process. So as we know in the state budget, there's only so much money that goes around. And so when they and the automatic increase is 25%, that's money that's coming out of the pockets of school districts. And Laurie did mention House Bill 1660, and the consequences of that is just so onerous in terms of how we would be required to comply with that. And in fact, that was when it was amended by the Senate Education Committee, that made it so much more complicated than it was. So that's what I have for that. At great risk, I should not try to follow up on Jim Leos, and I would not attempt to do that, but I just wanted to say how much I appreciate his comments, and he is so right on. I mean, we are so fortunate to have the superintendent that we have, Bob O'Donnell. I mean, not much goes here without him. I did not know about the ceremony celebrating Amber's work on the school board, which is completely well-deserved. We are really
Thank you.
fortunate to have Amber as head of the school board, and that makes it go. And also, obviously, we have a community that supports public education, and that, we would not be able to do any of that we do without that support. And again, we're fortunate to be able to do that. There's always things we can improve, of course, and you'll hear more from me later about that. But I think we should be really pleased with what we have done.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, Gretchen, the Center Region Council of Governments report.
I don't have a report. They have not met since our last meeting.
Okay, so any other communication items from the board? No? Okay. All right, and I think I'll try and keep everyone up to date on any future rallies in Harrisburg related to school funding, since that might be something the community might be interested in attending as well. Okay, so at this time, we have time on the agenda for public comment. As Dr. O'Donnell had indicated earlier, each individual is limited to comments of up to 2 minutes as time permits for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening public comment after board business is completed or during the next meeting. So is anyone here who would like to make a public comment? Sure. Mr. Williamson, you can come up to the lectern, and if you could just introduce, right up here, thank you. If you could just introduce yourself and where you reside in the district. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Williamson. I reside in College Township. I have a child at Mount Nittany Middle School. Good evening, Dr. O'Donnell and school board members. I am again requesting that 2 things happen with the health and safety team moving forward, as there have been tremendous mistakes made from this group, and their course correction has always been long delayed or non-existent. The first is that the health and safety team is representative of the community. The current health and safety team and the plan was supposed to be created with stakeholder involvement, not just commentary after the fact as you presented at board meetings. You have skirted this responsibility. Every student and family should have true representation in this process, because the ones who have been right almost every step of the way are the ones that you are leaving out. My second request is that any meeting that involves the creation or revision of the health and safety plan is for the viewing public and recorded. Dr. O'Donnell, your continued lack of transparency with the decisions made and the fact that the health and safety plan still reads the same as in July pertaining to unmasking individuals proves that this group cherry picks facts. You are supposed to lead this group in the best direction for our children. I have spoken at these meetings and emailed you about more than a half a dozen of these errors in judgment by the team. But tonight, just listen to one. The professionals on the health and safety team convinced you that 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old students sitting at their desk are more dangerous than a vaccinated adult. This is still in the health and safety plan that those people are allowed to go unmasked. There is clear evidence that those people can still transmit, and as you provided in your superintendent update, there are plenty of teachers that are showing, or that are testing positive. I fail to understand how that health and safety plan has not been adjusted. It never should have been written that way to begin with. The health and safety team meetings need to be transparent because it's clear that no one in these meetings points out when the professionals are wrong. You need to have more diverse voices and representations in these meetings and in response to these meetings so that errors like this don't happen again. We are not Monday morning quarterbacks. We just understand how to evaluate all of the facts.
Thanks for your input. To be clear, we do have adults in our building are wearing masks regardless of vaccination
Currently, but it's
status.
still in the health and safety plan that they can go without.
Okay. Is anyone else here who would like to make a public comment? And I'm looking at anyone who's viewing remotely. If you would like to make a public comment, just feel free to raise your hands. Okay. All right, I don't see any hands raised, and no one else who's here who would like to make a comment. Okay. Then we will move on to routine approvals. And at this time, I would be looking for a motion to approve the routine approval listing as presented on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on these items? Okay. All right, any public comment on routine approvals? Okay, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Then moving on to action items. Item A is a motion to approve Policy 6 and Policy 903, meetings and public participation in board meetings, as presented in Attachment 6A.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on these items, or, yes, Laurel?
I'm not sure about the way to do this, but I'm wondering if they can be separated. Would that be a request for a friendly
I think that could be a friendly amendment.
amendment that we vote first on 006 and then on 903?
Okay. Mr. Etter, how do we do that? Would it be possible, would that go to Laurie then, since she made the motion to accept the friendly amendment?
Right.
So then I make a motion to amend?
Well, I don't think we need to go to that formal steps. I think simply if you're okay with them being separated out for a vote and the person who seconded is, then I think just go ahead and vote separately.
Yes, I am fine with that.
Okay.
I am as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so should we start with, then we'll start with policy 006 then, as the initial motion. Okay. Any discussion on policy 006 or questions on that item then? Okay. Any public comment on policy 6? All right, then we will have a roll call vote on that.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Okay, so that item has passed. Then I would be looking for a motion to approve policy 903, public participation in board meetings, as shown in attachment 6A.
Don't we already have a motion through the prior motion? Or
That's the way I
It's
was
just
interpreting
separated,
it.
yeah. Oh, okay, so we can just do discussion. All right, so now we're discussing policy 903. So any questions or discussion on this item? Okay, Laurel?
Yes, I think it made a lot of sense to have 006 point to this, and these are the details of how we do the public participation. Back at the policy meeting on September 7th, the members present said that they were comfortable with changing it from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. And at the following, which I thought made sense, it's been 3 minutes as best I can remember since I came on the board 10 years ago. And I've always thought it made more sense to have the policy reflect what was actually happening. It was that way until about a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe now. And then on October 12th, the policy committee, the minutes just say that it tweaked the language. But the tweak was to reduce it from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. And though we've had some good examples of people who are skilled at speaking, which includes Mr. Williamson, Mr. Buck last time, making good speeches in 2 minutes, having in my time been on that side of the podium, I know that people can get nervous. And to me, moving it from 3 minutes to 2 minutes is a big deal for a lot of people. I think the 3 minutes that we've had at almost every meeting since I've been on the board has been fine. We just don't often have that many people. And I see no reason to move it from a theoretical 5 minutes down to 2 minutes, or an actual 3 minutes down to 2 minutes. We've managed this last year, but there have been times when it's been difficult, and I think it has felt like, since we do get to talk as long as we want to, I've been more comfortable. Well, theoretically. We also have to stay as long as we talk. But I just, 2 minutes seems very short to me. And we had also seen a survey that was done of school boards in Pennsylvania by PSBA that seemed to indicate that many of them were around 3 minutes. Many schools had that much. So,
Oh, okay. Do you have that, where was that survey? Was it
it
in
was at
policy
the back
committee
of
or?
it. No, it was at the last mailer, the
Oh,
news
okay.
magazine that we get.
Mhm.
It surveyed a whole bunch of interesting things about how
Oh,
many meetings they had that people voted and.
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that.
So as a member of the policy committee, I can share some information. I know that in the multiple iterations we've gone through with this, 3 minutes may have been what was written in the document, but there were discussions at multiple meetings about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and a lot of the consensus was around, one, what our actual practice has recently been, which is 2 minutes. And also knowing there was always the opportunity to expand that to longer. So we felt like the minimum threshold we would ever allow, like the shortest we would ever get would be 2 minutes. We certainly would never expect someone to speak for only a minute or less. We felt that was inappropriate. So being that 2 minutes would be our shortest threshold, we felt that should be what's documented. And then at times where it could be more, like 3 or 5 minutes, there's the opportunity to put that in the agenda by board leadership moving forward. But we would never go below a threshold of 2 minutes. So we felt that was most appropriate because we heard from several members of the public that it was confusing when they saw things like 5 minutes, even though the language in the policy states the chair or the president of the board has the prerogative to lessen that. People just read 5 minutes and then they get upset when it's not 5 minutes. So we felt it was most respectful to the public to put the lowest threshold in the policy and then always acknowledge that we could expand that to a larger number. So that no one was ever surprised if they showed up and it was announced at the meeting that only 2 minutes was available for public comment, but we always had the opportunity to make it greater. So that was the rationale at that meeting, to make it 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes in the document. Although at multiple iterations of the meeting, we had talked about both as a possibility. There was never any hard commitment to the 3 minute mark. So I just don't want it to be characterized that way. It wasn't like all of a sudden both those numbers were thrown around and the decision was that the lowest threshold should probably be what's in the document.
And Amy, thank you for basically reviewing the nature of the discussion. I'm also on the policy committee. I think the way in which the language in the policy as is presented this evening indicates just as you're describing. This is the minimum standard, but we can go beyond it if circumstances allow and provide for that. And so I think the balance in a sense is built into the policy as it's written. So.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm the way it's written, I'm fine with 2 minutes, because again, it can be expanded, and I'm actually trying to decide whether I want to make a friendly amendment to have the board be limited to the 2 minutes as well, but that probably wouldn't be good. So, no, I'm fine with the 2 minutes.
Okay. So basically, like to recap what you were describing from this discussion, it seems like what might be most appropriate then is if we were to approve this policy as written, then it sort of should be a discussion, among the board leadership and the board as we go along, what is the amount of time that we generally want to have printed on agendas? And then there may be times when it needs to be clear that we may, if there's a large volume of speakers, 2 minutes may be more appropriate because, we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak who wants to speak, so.
Absolutely, and we had the same discussion at policy that the reality was, it was pretty rare for us to cut some off right at 2 minutes, unless we had a large volume of people present. That generally that the president gave some leeway for the person to wrap up their comments, and frequently comments have gone to 2.5 minutes or longer, even when we've had that 2 minute threshold. So, yeah.
Laurel?
Thanks, and I do appreciate the explanation. It actually says 2 minutes unless otherwise, which means it could actually be 1 minute if that were the decision at some point. It doesn't say it will never be less than 2 minutes. So the language is actually pretty much the same as it's been, X amount unless otherwise. And I was not at the meeting, so I relied on the minutes that said, the committee supported changing 903 to provide 3 minutes maximum, unless otherwise denounced. So that's when I said, the committee had said that, I was going straight from the minutes. I was not at the meeting,
Right.
so.
Do you think, I don't know, I mean, if the language said, use the words a minimum of 2 minutes, that might be.
No less than 2 minutes, I guess is what we're saying. A minimum. I mean, we can always announce otherwise when we need to. So,
I don't think we need to go back to committee, though.
I don't
for
think so
that
either.
kind of.
It could simply be something like,
yeah. I don't
shall be
think so.
provided a minimum of 2 minutes duration.
I would be comfortable with that.
I'd like that.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. So procedurally, do we need to, are we okay to approve it? And do we need to have some kind of a vote on that amendment?
So I'm sorry, I don't.
No,
is
go
that-
ahead.
So the only thing, I'm fine with a minimum, but I think if it says a minimum unless otherwise announced, that doesn't quite
Right,
fit
it
for
doesn't
me
limit
because,
Otherwise increased is what you're sort of saying.
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yes, that's right.
Right now, it gives you that flexibility.
Yeah.
Maybe limited is just fine. And then, yeah, at the heading of every agenda, it's public comment and then what it will be for that.
Though I do think there should probably be the flexibility, you know, if we printed the agenda with 3 minutes and then we find that there's 200 people here, that might be an appropriate time to amend it on the fly to 2 minutes, not out of any disrespect for those making public comment, but more so that, you know, everyone who wants to speak.
More opportunities,
More
right.
Yeah, so that more people get a chance to speak.
Seems like it might be easier to go the other way. Like tonight, we came in, we have one speaker, hey, let's make it 3 minutes tonight. And then,
Yeah, we could have, yeah.
do you know what I mean? Or, yeah, so
Right.
that's up to you, but I think it seems easier to go that direction rather than telling people they have
Right.
longer time period and then telling them,
Right.
hey, you have to edit your
Yeah.
That's why we made it two.
down.
Because it's very upsetting for people to arrive expecting a certain number and then be cut down. Much
Right.
easier
Right.
to expand time.
Because sometimes people have practiced it to a certain, you know, to make sure they have it
Right.
within the time limit. Yeah. Okay, so where are we on the language then? That it would be a minimum of 2 minutes?
No, I think keeping it because minimum implies that you can talk for at least 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So maybe the language is just fine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that too then. I think we have a sense of how we're going to approach it then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, any further discussion, Jim?
So one of the things is that doesn't look like it's codified here, but we say that we're going to hold it for 30 minutes. Our recent practice has been we hold it for 30 minutes and then the board may open comments again if, you know, if it goes longer or whatever.
Right.
So, and I don't know that needs to be codified, but, and I suppose this
agenda.
policy
Doesn't
gives
say
that
how long.
leeway, right?
Do you think is it
It
written
is in
in?
another section
Oh,
about,
okay.
well, not the 30 minutes, but there
Okay.
are comments that the board can defer public comment to a subsequent meeting. That's in
Oh, you're right,
006.
you're right, yeah.
So
yeah.
there is some language
Yeah.
in those policies that covers that, I think.
You are
Because
correct.
we did talk about that. I think just
And
in
that
the nature of COVID, we've been giving
Yeah.
that time frame so that the public has some expectation that public comment is not going to be permitted indefinitely through, because we have to get to our agenda.
Well, I think what you're thinking of is a sentence that says the agenda for each meeting shall reflect the amount of time available. It doesn't say 30 minutes, but it does say that it will be
Oh,
in
yeah,
here.
okay,
That's, I think, maybe what you're remembering.
that's good, yeah.
Okay, that makes
Okay,
sense.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, then is there any public comment on this item? Okay, if you'd like to come up and share your thinking.
So I guess, real quick, Steve Williamson, College Township, clarifying question, is it 803 or 903, is that only about like the time constrictions? Is that the only major change?
That's the only change to that policy,
Okay.
is
So
clarifying, because we had,
personally, I'd like to see
There
it
had been
tabled tonight or voted down. Thank you. The reason being is, do you know how many times it's gone over, public comment has gone over 20 minutes in the last year? I can remember one time, July 19th or whatever that date was, that it's gone over 20 minutes. Okay? So, first of all, you're limiting the public's involvement by changing it from 5 minutes down to 2 minutes. And there's no, for lack of a better word, there's no process for coming up with how much time should be allowed. Now, when the pandemic started, it was at 3 minutes. And then somewhere around last October, November, it was changed to 2 minutes. Okay, and then since last October, it has never gone over a half an hour. And there was only one time where it went over 20 minutes, to my knowledge. I haven't attended every single board meeting, so feel free to fact check me on that. But the July Health and Safety introduction meeting, it went to about 22 or 23 minutes on public comment. I also think there should be a difference between general public comment and action items. Like, I feel like the biggest issues you've had as a board with controlling the public comment is the action item is typically soliciting more involvement than the general public comment.
right, and that's, is not in regard to action
So
items.
if you're
This is-
allowing,
There is no limit on action item vote on public comment. You're not legally permitted to limit action item commenting.
so during action items, we can talk as long as we want?
No,
No.
no, that's, no, I don't have the duration
No,
of
no,
time,
that's what I'm saying,
because-
like,
But the public comment period as a whole
Right.
cannot be limited.
Like, I understand like a 2 or 3 minute limit on action items, but I don't understand the limit on the general public comment. If somebody from the community has something important to say, give them the time to say it. 5 minutes should be plenty of time for them to say it. Most of them, it's really hard to sit here and speak for 5 minutes straight. And then the other question I would have is, do you know how much you can read off of a sheet of paper in 2 minutes? Like, the fact that you don't know the answers to these questions means you should table this tonight and have another discussion for how much you can actually say in 2 minutes. But also, you allow 30 minutes of public comment, but we've never reached 30 minutes, so why are you talking about limiting the time of a person even more than you already have? I guess that's all I have to say. I feel this should be tabled or voted down so that you can actually analyze what's what, because I believe that you're trying to limit community voices when people are passionate about certain things. Thank you.
No, I guess I'd like to clarify the reason these were on the agenda to begin with, was that there had been some concern that between policy 6 and policy 903, that the language, because those both deal with public participation in board meetings, one is in policy on meetings and the other is related to public participation, that they had been last updated at different times. And so the language, we were trying to create consistent language between the two policies. This is not about, the intention of revising these policies was to ensure there was consistency between the two. The intention is not about how to limit it. It was to make sure that the two policies were consistent in the wording so that they weren't, because they were out of sync before. So that's all. Thank you.
So how does changing it to 2 minutes make it in sync? I guess I just
I'm
don't
sorry,
understand that.
I'd just like to note that public comment is for comments, not for
Yeah,
dialogue
we're-
and discussion.
Yeah. All right, thanks. I see several other people with their hands raised. In the chat, Michelle Young, I see your hand raised. If you would like to unmute yourself, you should be able to speak now. And if you could just introduce yourself and where you reside in the district.
Hi, I'm Michelle Young, and I'm a resident of Ferguson Township. I have 2 kids in middle school and 1 kid in elementary school. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I wanted to thank Laurel for bringing this topic up and being a champion for this topic. And I concur with everything that she said. You know, in the last many months of talking to many parents, this topic actually came up more frequently than I thought it would in regards to comments and public comments. So I wanted to provide some feedback. 2 minutes, as Laurel said, it really is a difficult time. It's difficult to squeeze everything into 2 minutes. And I consider myself a fairly well-spoken person. And it still, I had to spend some time really reiterating. I think 3 minutes is generally pretty average to get folks to be able to say what they need to say. because at 2:20, 2:30, I just found myself really having to just keep cutting and keep cutting. And I found that feedback to be true from many parents that I spoke with over the last year. In addition, comments were made that it's just the minimum time. But again, over the last year and a half or so, like you said, maybe two, it's been 2 minutes the entire time. Not once has the board raised it to 3 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And so if that's the case, then I would encourage the board on a regular basis to increase the time, as Mr. Williamson's point is well made. In addition, this has also bled over to the committee meetings, where committee comments are now being 2 minutes, shortened by 2 minutes. And where I can understand that folks, want to go home and leave the meetings, there's really no other outlet for parents to provide input on policymaking, except for at those committee meetings. So unless you guys really provide a forum for people to provide comments on policies that are being drafted or other activity, I would really encourage you to ensure that you either don't limit the time if you don't have to, or increase the time at the committee meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, I see Peter Buck has his hand raised. If you'd like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and then you'll also have 2 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. My name is Peter Buck. I live in College Township. I want to thank the board for addressing this issue and address some of the concerns. Under various parliamentary procedures, this can actually be taken care of pretty easily by the chair or the president of the board. You can ask for unanimous consent in order to suspend or amend a rule temporarily. So if there are a limited number of people and you think, oh, we're not very pressed for time, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, et cetera, that is possible. And all it would require is that the chair, the president in this case, asking for that. And so I think that there's built into parliamentary procedure a really good way to handle this. And it would, on the fly and with forethought, address Ms. Zidney's, Ms. Young's, and Mr. Williamson's concerns. That's all.
Thank you. Is anybody else in it who would like to make a comment? Now I'm not sure how to get back to the participants. Oh, here we go. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. All right. Okay, if it's okay, I'm going to just speak again for one moment on this. So listening to all the feedback, including members of the public who feel that on a regular basis, when there's not a large number of people, that 3 minutes may be reasonable. I guess I still am supportive of the policy as written because it's setting a minimum expectation. But I think I would certainly be comfortable with establishing a norm that like 3 minutes would be more the norm. And sometimes discussions that we have about board protocol affect how we run meetings. We might decide that we want to, just that 3 minutes may be the norm that we would generally print on our agendas as an expected amount of time, but that 2 minutes would still be the minimum. So that even if we had 100 people here, we would still provide 2 minutes, not 90 seconds or whatnot for. Does that make sense?
Yep.
As an approach?
Yep. I think that was the intent,
Yeah.
coming out.
Okay.
I also think determining what work you have on the agenda for action items. If you have a lot of heavy action items that you're anticipating,
Right.
that's also a consideration with managing the night, because sometimes we're here after 10 o'clock and there's an action item and people are spent. So I think that's something we need to weigh into it when you're managing the night.
Yeah, I think that's important for the public to understand is that it's a balance of the work that needs to be done. And while us as board members are accommodated or have the expectation we may be here till 10 or 11 or midnight, we also have administrators here that have to collaborate with us on this process. And many of them need to be at work at 6:30, 7 in the morning to then, do their job and be with students. So it's not just about it's not about our time. It's about making sure that our staff can do their job early in the morning the next day as well, so.
And it's pretty rare, thankfully.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's been some nights where board members have struggled you know, hanging in there through some,
Oh, definitely.
But-
Yeah.
but anyways, that
None of
should
us
weigh
wants
in.
to be here Tuesday morning. Okay, so if there's no more discussion among the board, we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote.
What will exactly read? How will that line?
As it's written.
It's as simply as written. I think that,
Limited to
I'm sorry,
2
could you,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. At this point, the motion on the table is voting to approve policy 903, public participation in board meetings as presented in attachment 6A.
Ms. Brandt,
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion,
Yes.
Dr. Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mr. Leos.
Yes.
Ms. Sidney,
No.
Dr. Bader,
Yes.
Ms. Bedell.
Yes.
Okay, so that item has passed. Item B is a motion to approve permission to bid the IT generator connection as shown in attachment 6B.
So moved?
Second?
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? Scott?
Yeah, so Jim, I don't know whether you can answer this question or not, or Randy. So if the power goes down, you know, the way this is written is it's to maintain network integrity, is the way I read it. So I'm assuming this is related to internal network integrity versus the fact that everything is cloud-based anyways, and if the electric goes down, in all likelihood, we're gonna lose our our internet service provider anyways, unless our situation is different. So I'm trying to, I'm not against this, I'm just trying to figure out what exactly this is, what risk this is mitigating for us.
Mike and Justin, are you on?
This is, so all of our IT systems, our IDFs, our MDFs are on what are called uninterrupted power supplies. So they do maintain power for a short time. And this would actually connect them to the backup generator if we lost power, for a longer period of time. We could lose power and still have connectivity into the building.
So this is a broader UPS, you're saying?
It's connecting these to our backup generators already in place.
Okay, all right, that answers my question, thank you.
Amy?
I just had a quick question about just the reason that Mountain Indian Middle School is twice as the other buildings. Is there a larger facility of servers there? Or I just didn't understand the cost differential for one building.
Length of the run.
Oh.
Length of the run.
The length of the run. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So the distance to the facility. Okay, cool. Well, it's not cool that it costs more money, but I get it. Is what I meant.
Should be bigger. Okay, any other questions?
Is this a state price? Is that set by, that was not a bid, right? It's a,
That's permission to bid.
This is permission to bid.
oh, okay,
These are estimated.
Okay.
Yes, this is just
Okay.
permission to bid the project.
Okay, so there's no state rate for these, okay, thanks.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, we will have a roll call vote then.
Ms. Concepcion,
Yes.
Dr. Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mr. Leos.
Yes.
Ms. Sidney,
Yes.
Dr. Bader,
Yes.
Ms. Bedell,
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Item C is a motion to approve the Radio Park Sinkhole Remediation Change Order as shown in attachment 6C.
So moved.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? Laurie?
I'm just wondering if Mr. Fisher can give us a sense for whether or not this is seeming like we're at the end of the road with this project? Will this do it?
So it's a sinkhole, it's underground. Sometimes these things can be a little tough to predict. In the original bid, engineering had estimated 10 cubic yards of flowable fill remediate, we ended up using 72. So to put it into perspective, but if we had CMT, our testing service on site, during all the backfill, and they were confident that this will repair the sinkhole.
Can somebody summarize that for me? Because I had a really hard time hearing that.
Randy, did you hear well?
Mike, is your personal computer sound on? Because I don't know if that's part of the reverb.
Come on, he's not, yeah, he's on Zoom.
Yeah, no. Darn.
Is it something with the way we're set up here in the room? That's a little better.
Okay, I'll speak up. So, starting from the beginning, sinkholes can be a little hard to predict. To put it into perspective, our base bid included 10 cubic yards of flowable fill, so pumping concrete down in the hole. That's what engineering expected to remediate. We ended up using 72 cubic yards, to put it into perspective. So we had CMT, our testing service on site, throughout the remediation, and they were confident that this will take care of the problem.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Any public comment on this item? Okay, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes. Okay, so that item is passed. The next item, D, is a motion to approve the IB MOU with the State College Area Education Association as shown in attachment 6D.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? Any public comment? All right, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Mr. Fazzard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Item E is a motion to approve the engagement contract with Heinemann Publishers for employee professional development. This is shown in attachment 6E.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? Laurel?
Basically, this is significantly less than the previous one that we approved, which is, I'm always happy to spend less when it's well spent. But I'm going to repeat what I had asked last time, which is that it would be good to get a perspective on the full program of things so that we can understand how we can have an equally positive program for less than half the money.
We shifted gears on the agenda, and I think, I believe Saria, Chris, and Deirdre might be online here. What we're doing on the front end of the morning, Saria and I are going to kick it off, and we shifted gears a little bit differently. And this person plugs into the day, and we'll gladly get you a copy of the agenda of where we're going. And if you read Ms. Ahmed's background, you see it jibes with our focus this year. Not that the other proposal didn't, but that's where we are. Saria, is there anything you want to weigh in here on? I don't know, Laurel, if there's a key specific question.
You all able to hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So as far as Laurel's question and the difference in price, it really just comes down to the speaker and the publisher and the price. I mean, you can go from, and depending upon the popularity, even of the speaker, and Matthew K. Is significantly more kind of, I can't say popular, but just sought after than Sarah Ahmed, but it does not mean that Sarah Ahmed's program and her book and the focus is any less important than Matthew K's. And so I just want to point that out as well. And like Dr. O'Donnell said, we are switching gears with the program primarily to ensure that we are responding to some upcoming changes that we know are coming up with teacher evaluation and different things like that. We want to make sure that we are basically responding to the specific needs of the teacher. And this has come up over this last little period of time here. And so we definitely are ensuring that our program is meeting the needs of our teachers so that they're really excited to come to this day and engage.
I appreciate that. And I wasn't actually, I do appreciate the explanation. I was more saying just in general that having a better sense of what we are doing and why we sometimes bring people in from outside when we already have a lot of expertise within the district would be helpful, rather than micromanaging every particular request, just to have a better sense of how we are doing professional education in the district would be very helpful to understand this type of outlay for someone coming into the district, bringing their expertise in.
So are you asking for just a board update on professional development?
Yeah, I mean, I've asked it several different
That's
times.
on the CCL agenda, like I told the CCL committee, it's on your next agenda, Laurel.
Yeah,
We
I
had that discussion, so if you have a different request, can you make it?
No, I was just making the same request again because we were voting on an item again. I appreciate the update, but I wasn't even asking for that much detail. I was just saying, I'm looking forward to getting that overall perspective.
Thank you,
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that's what you were getting at.
I wasn't sure if you meant like embedded with these requests or.
I mean, I do think the idea of learning with your faculty is part, you want to bring in so that it's not just people internally speaking to them. We haven't invested much in outside professional development, and I'm sorry to say that. I mean, because I do think when we do have quality people working with us, then it enables, people that are part of our administrative team to partake in those as well. When you're running a professional development, whether you're a faculty member, and on that day, faculty members will be leading sessions in January, as will administrators. But, so, we're hopeful it's very practical, and I think the planning team is doing the best that they believe for the plan, so.
Well, and sometimes it can be very inspiring even to have one of these keynotes who is just very good at inspiring people, and they walk, even if they don't say something in particular, people walk away with their brains sparking, and that's excellent. I'm not saying, so I'm not saying that's never, I am saying that that's often appropriate to do.
Okay, yeah. You can't, we don't, obviously, there's not a lot of time when you really look at the full year and what commitments we have with the time. I do think where it's appropriate, and I do think when you look at her background, including what her role is, hopefully it's a valuable experience for people, and obviously we're putting our trust in the planning team and our administrators that are part of that, with some faculty that are planning that day out, and so thanks.
All right, any other questions on this item? Okay, any public comment on this item? Okay, we will have a roll call vote then.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brand?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Moving into the information discussion portion of the agenda. The first item is in regard to engaging Fox Rothschild LLP as a legal resource for our Title IX services in the district. This is shown in attachment 7A, and we have Linda Pierce coming to the table to give us a overview of this process.
So, as Linda's getting situated, some changes went in place in the middle of the pandemic, and there's some more updates that have happened within the past year, and there's training requirements, and there's a lot of details related to what we need to be carrying out as a school district with relation to Title IX. So, and because of that, and the, obviously the priorities to do this well, we're looking to have some expertise to help coach us through, and Linda's running point in the district on this, so I'll turn it over to her. Thank you, Linda.
So, as Bob said, this is on, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah?
It doesn't sound like it.
Is it on now? Maybe?
No, the on-off is on the top,
center.
on the
It's on the center.
post, on the center of the post, there's a little button to unmute it. Yep, up there.
This one up, right there, yeah.
Turn it on.
On the bottom, the red button's not on the bottom.
There, now try. Talk into it, Linda, and see if it goes.
Oh, there.
It's
now
red.
on.
Light, how's that? Red light. One would think it'd be simple. Thank you. Make sure the cable's plugged in the back. Can you hear me now?
I mean, I
I
can
can hear you, but I don't know if
think
it's coming
on
through the
mic.
system.
Yeah.
All right, I'll speak loud.
Okay.
Um, the,
There we are.
Oh, there.
There we are.
get that out of my face. The tricky part of Title IX is that they don't just say you need to investigate these complaints. They tell you precisely who needs to be in place, how they need to investigate. So we decided that we wanted some expertise to make sure we get it right. The last thing I want is for the national headlines to be that the State College Area School District is cited for yada, 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 yada. Kind of like Duke University was 20 years ago or so. So that's why we're looking to have this very specific expertise. The attorney I've been talking to has 20 years in employment law and 10 years in Title IX. And that she will be coming, if this is approved, she would also be coming to the district to provide training for our administrators, and we also need to train our faculty and instructional support personnel. So as you can imagine, that will be quite an undertaking.
Okay. So they would help with that training process?
No, they would provide that training.
Provide it, right, okay.
Yeah.
So they're doing that so that you don't have to spend your office's time to do that on top of everything else? Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, other questions?
Linda, when this comes with a formal contract, will we get it as with some kind of estimate? I know it noted the cost per hour in tonight's memo, but there wasn't really any order of magnitude to know what we might be looking at.
I honestly don't know how to estimate. We could estimate the training. That I could come up with.
Right,
an
I
estimate.
understand we may engage them for additional stuff, but some kind of, yeah.
Knowing what else might end up being necessary,
Yeah, I just
I
think
don't want to take a wild guess.
Right, I just think we need to have some sense of the magnitude of the investment. I know we need to do stuff for
Yeah.
sure, but, whether we're talking about a couple of $1,000s or we're talking about tens of thousands of,
Right.
I can do an estimate for the training.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thanks.
Dan?
I guess I'm looking at the personnel assignments in this system. And just, there's a lot to do. There are a lot of assignments. And my first thought was there's probably a district-wide facilitator coordinator that would need to be identified. That's you.
That's Linda.
And there's probably a building level for each one, perhaps.
That we could, that's a decision we've not yet made.
Okay.
That's not dictated.
But I mean, in terms of managing this, there's going to be a core team of these facilitators or
The principals will play a role in this, absolutely.
Got it. Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Laurie?
I'm actually really
glad to see that this is going to be in place, not just because of the support it's going to provide the district, but because I think that it says something to our community about the care that they will receive, the detailed care that they will receive if they find themselves victimized. So I'm really supportive of this, and you know, I understand how complicated this is and how frustrating it may have been even to try to understand all of these moving pieces. So I'm grateful that you'll be finding support and that our community will feel that we're taking steps to take care. So, thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, Jim?
How do you foresee this interacting with Dr. Edgar as our district solicitor, Dr. Edgar?
I've talked,
Maybe that's-
I've talked to Dr. Eder on quite a few occasions. I'd say it depends.
Oh.
This isn't uncommon, Jim. In
Right.
my experience at district, obviously the size and scope of our operations. Special education, for example, we have an ongoing relationship with a firm and an attorney who is very highly specialized in those types of things. And as Linda's alluded to, over the last 5 years, I'm not sure how many years you've been here, she and I have worked on some cases or several cases, but I certainly support this for the specialized nature of what needs to be done.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Scott?
I guess piggybacking on that question, are we potentially engaging this person and or firm for legal representation, or is it for programmatic and policy related and training expertise? Because not that it matters, but I look at those two things completely differently if we're actually engaging them as
So-
legal representation.
Our intent is the latter, policy-making training. I sincerely hope I retire, that's for sure, before we have to worry about legal representation. And I hope we never, ever have to worry about legal representation for Title IX. But if we do require it, we will have a discussion, certainly with Dr. Eder, obviously with Bob, and if we decide it's necessary, then we'll bring in Fox Rothschild.
Okay.
I find that difficult to say for some reason.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the 2022-2023 academic calendar process. There's an attachment in 7B, and Dr. O'Donnell and Mr. Johnson are going to review this item with us and the proposed process.
So, as CJ makes his way up, what we simply did was overviewed timing, and obviously that we have a policy regarding the calendar that charges the superintendent to make a presentation of a calendar. Curtis heads that up in his role, and he, Danielle, and I have been talking through the process and just wanted to put that in a memo to you that we're working on this. And the role of the advisory committee to us is to work with CJ and Danielle, and we have people from around the district. It's not a massive group. It is a group with some different experiences and perspectives. There are some people on there that will go out to other advisory groups. For example, I've asked Saria to take the calendar to the religious and spirituality work group just for feedback regarding calendar concerns that have come through that group, and they have a pretty good group that can help us with how we point out problems in the calendar, and we'll take a look at those. We do receive a lot of opinions about our calendar, and the uniqueness from what I've seen in my career is that we do have some different things tugging at us. And we've tried to, from our team standpoint, look at the data related to student learning and attendance, and let's let the facts drive. You know, when we're seeing it's advantageous to have kids in school, or be in session, I should say. So, you know, that's what we've done when we've asked the board back in, it might have been 2015, when Mr. Hardy and I asked you to consider the spring break week because we were having such bad attendance. And we brought forward the data in that change request. I think that was after you had already approved the calendar, and then we had such an awful time that year in the spring, and that's what drove us, because we were struggling with that. So with that said, we also think because of the dated nature of the policy 1999, as well as the guidelines, which several things have changed from the board's guideline document or resolution, we think with our current practice with policy and administrative regulation, since that is more of a procedure or guideline document, we think that should shift into an admin reg. And there are components in there that make a lot of sense to continue on, and we have. But then the things that have changed, you know, I think we should adjust those and attach that so it's with your policy in a visible manner on the website, so that people understand the process. So, CJ, is there anything I forgot there? I mean, he drew the short straw on this, so. But they have a meeting this coming week, and then I know we're also running it by all the principals this week as well. So, you know, our plan will come to you with a proposal in early December. We know this year we have more change over at the board level as well, so we didn't bring it this week, but we wanted to put it in writing that it's on its way. So if there's any questions of us, that's just an outline or a preview of what we're working on.
I'd also like to say that we invited Dr. Surrey Chatters to also be a part of the calendar committee, so we can include that heavily in this piece as well.
Great.
Thanks, CJ.
Yeah. Questions? Yeah. Laurel?
I think the number one question I've heard from people around this is how you get to be on the calendar committee as a parent. So you already mentioned the
Right.
people who are on the one committee, but
Yeah.
if
The
you're not on
community
that
committee.
committee, if that was the
So
question I've been
it's an
asking.
advisory committee to the administration. So it's the administration who's selected some parents to be on there. Typically, it's the assistant superintendents who have, it's not a huge committee, Laurel, and but if it becomes a board CAC, then it's the board making that decision. But it's not a, you know, we have parameters within our contracts. We want to make sure we adhere to all the different constraints that the state puts out, as well as our documents that we have to adhere to, that the board approves. So we work within those, and then also look at the data regarding what are advantageous days to have kids in session, and we go from there. So it's you know, that's really what it is. We don't look to them to say, you're in charge of the calendar because your policy says the superintendent makes a proposal. And if I'm responsible, I'm going to get involved and not, you know, pass the buck. I'm going to ask them for their thinking. If I disagree with some of the thinking, then I'll share that. But most times I agree. They don't always agree, by the way, on the committee. It's not like it's a voting process.
Yeah. We'd hope they'd bring different perspectives.
Yeah.
No, I've been asked that, and so I thought I would ask it as well.
I think people they check in with the assistant superintendents if they want to make a request. If you know, if we think that part of you know, the schools isn't represented, then, you know, but I mean, we don't look at it as a district-wide representative. I mean, it's not a massive strategic planning team, because it could easily be that, easily. You know, the fury or the opinions that come at it, sometimes fury, in relationship to the calendar.
also like to say, due to the regulations, state, local, there is very little latitude
Right.
in the
Yep.
schedule. You either start earlier or end later, or, you know, so that there's very little latitude.
Yep. I know, anytime I've had a brilliant idea for how to improve it, there's always a reason why that hasn't already been tried.
It's like one of those puzzles that like all the walls keep, you can never,
Yeah.
it just.
And you can make changes if you want to endure the, you know, the blowback, but also, is there data suggests that we will have high attendance, not just students, but employees too? I mean, they have contractual rights to take personal days and things, and we've seen the challenge of staffing
Religious holidays.
during times as well. So, and that's some of the data that we review when we consider whether or not we should be in session, whether it's at the front end, whether it's spring break, and then obviously if you go in second or third week of June, you know, what's the real value of that?
Okay.
So thanks, CJ.
I think it's interesting, there's parents out there who want to be on that committee. I would not be on that committee. I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I know. Yeah, I don't know if anyone could pay me to serve on that one. But it is really, as Mr. Johnson had said, there's just not that much, there aren't that
Right.
many decisions to be made because most of it is fitting those
Right.
legally required days where they need to go.
Yeah, and then when you add in the marking period, the stretch of a marking period, that constrains other things like records days and things, so
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just.
Yeah. Okay. Now I need to find my original agenda.
And you know, as you're getting at, the policy itself, I think, other than adding something regarding the value, you know, obviously prioritizing student learning and attendance is, you know, I think something from an expectation standpoint of the board, I think that would complement what's in there.
And in the memo, there's a reference to working on the policy, working on some of the updating the policy that underlies this process.
Yeah, I mean, I don't suggest all the you know, procedures or guidelines go in there, because as we've seen in the past decade, some of those have changed. You know, whether it's Penn State and how they run their calendar, whether it's the Grange Fair and when their calendar happens, or how the duration, those are sensitive issues that we didn't control those changes. But I do think the expectations of the board on what we should prioritize, and obviously our mission relates to our students, and if we keep the focus on, you know, students and the value of being in session as best we can, that'll, I think, guide whoever's developing the calendar a little more.
Okay, then the next item on the agenda is board committee reports. Communications Committee, Jim, we had a meeting last week.
Right, and it's mostly in the notes, but we did talk about the Pennsylvania charter legislation, and Amy stepped up to volunteer to sort of write a position piece on that and run it past the next board's communications committee. We also talked about future priorities and where we should get ahead of some of the communications. Obviously, this budget development this year is probably going to include a tax hike. And I say probably, and Randy looks up. But it probably, so we need to get in front of that. There's a lot of misinformation about curriculum. I think we need to get ahead of that. So there's some strategic priorities that we need to think about going into the, you know, into the next board year and then into the summer. So, and that's the main thing. And thanks everybody for doing your homework and doing a summary of the board coffees with conversations with the community. In general, we found those very valuable, and we agreed to continue them. That is all.
All right, any other input?
We didn't tell the new board members that, but
we already signed you up for.
I'll add one thing to that, which is just that, you know, in public comment and formal meetings is really kind of one way, but those board coffees, that's exactly where the back and forth can happen. So there's I know they've tried to schedule them for the morning, for the evening, and then online in case people can't attend physically. So anyway, that's a really great place for the back and forth.
And reflecting on some of the feedback that we received through public comment in earlier meetings, and I really appreciated this comment that came through. The experience of people coming to us and in 2 or 3 minutes trying to compress their thoughts and not having the opportunity for the back and forth, the opportunity to be heard and to be able to hear different perspectives, different points of view about the issue they're concerned about. I really understood people's frustration about that because it didn't, if I were somebody walking in off the street and had not having been to a board meeting before, I'd wonder why are these people going through this process of simply offering their concerns or their complaints or their requests and having no response from the part of the board listening. It would be very weird to be in the middle of that situation. And I think it's very reasonable for people who come to us with concerns to want to have that conversation. And the way we do it is we currently have been doing it, and we have done it in the past, has been by having these coffee meetings, these opportunities for community contact. They're really important. And I've really personally had, there's been an individual with whom I've emailed back and forth about a variety of issues during my term on the board. And it was during one of these coffee opportunities that we really hit, we really aligned ourselves in terms of understanding each other, in terms of where we were coming from and what our perspectives were on a variety of issues. And I thought that was really helpful, very, very powerful. So I think these conversations are really important. And it's about us listening as much as it is, actually more than it is about our sharing our points of view. It's about our listening to the community and understanding more what's on people's minds. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that piece of information in about communication.
And I think many of us have often expressed our willingness or interest in, people reach out and if they're not able to attend one of these scheduled coffees, that most of us are, certainly very interested in talking with others, with community members at times that do work for them, just to schedule a coffee, at a time that does work.
For
So
individuals,
we've often
this
been,
is true.
very interested in doing that. And, I think these were an important effort, and I think continuing them is a good idea. And I think also when people come to board meetings over time, it depends on how long they are. Sometimes people just can't stay till the end, or sometimes we have an intermission in the middle if it's going to be a long meeting. And often those are times also that we can connect with people who have, for example, usually when someone makes a public comment, or if several people are making public comment, if they're still there when it's time for the intermission or the end of the meeting, it's a good opportunity for us to connect with them as well. Okay. All right, so that was communications, sorry. Okay, upcoming meetings, we have finance and audit on the 17th. And then on the 23rd, we have a CCL meeting. And those are both scheduled as Zoom meetings at this time. In terms of board report updates, Dan, is there an intermediate unit report?
We have a board meeting coming up this Thursday. We've recently hired through email, I've learned that we've recently hired a information technology specialist, director, which a position that has been open in a sense since June. So it's really important that we have that expertise. We have a lot of our training and program development that takes place online. So it's really crucial for us to have that support, particularly given the fact that because of the loss of one of our two main facilities, we're now broken up into 2 or 3 other facilities that require internet capacity. And so it's been really valuable to have that person on board to help us with the technology involved to accomplish that.
And Amber, we also received approval earlier this afternoon to sell the building that Dan just alluded to.
Ah, okay.
Getting a very good price for it, so we're happy with that.
Good.
Probably should have closing in the next week or 2.
Great.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, the Ed Foundation report, Scott?
Yeah, I was not able to attend the last meeting. Randy, were you? Yeah, so I don't have a report then.
Okay.
I can tell you the agenda was fairly benign. From
Okay.
that standpoint, not much on it, some grant improvement.
You don't happen to know if there's a maroon and gray date, or if that's been? Well, just because it might be helpful to get on our calendars whenever we have that figured out.
Yeah, I don't see anything on here at this point.
There is a date, hold on.
May 21st.
Okay, thank you.
May 21st, Amber.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. Okay, great. All right, the Ctc Advisory Committee, Jim?
We actually have a meeting in conjunction with the Central Pennsylvania Institute of Science and Technology this Monday, or I'm sorry, this Wednesday at 11:30, and it's to come up with what they call a comprehensive local needs assessment. So we'll be working with CPI and our CTC to see what gaps exist in vocational and training in the area, and technology training in the area, and come up with a plan how we can satisfy it. And it's part of the requirements to receive the federal Perkins grant. So that'll be at 1:30 over Google Meet on 11:30 over Google Meet on Wednesday. And if you'd like to participate, there's people that were invited, but if you'd like to hear about what is going, reach out to Dr. Morden and the CTC.
Great, thank you. Okay, CACs, we have not had an athletics CAC.
There's one tomorrow.
Oh, is there? Okay. Great.
I'll send you it too.
Okay. All right, facilities, Lori, has there been?
Not since September
Okay.
or October.
Finance? Okay. School health and safety?
We recently had our fall meeting of the CAC for School Health and Safety. We include the typical items for the agenda involving the school health and welfare update with Megan Schaefer, I believe, and the staff wellness update, food service update with Megan, an update involving the physical plant with Mike Fisher, and there was an item related to equity office updates. Also addressed in this committee is the all-hazard planning that takes place, and chief among them right now is the pandemic planning discussion of the safety team meeting occurring weekly to review data, addressing concerns related to in-person learning, contact tracing, athletics, and so on. There was in the area of safety and security, there was the discussion of trying to catch up in terms of the training and exercise planning on the part of the school district under Act 44. And there's a need to review our status and compare our status right now with where things were in 2019 and 2020. There's also a discussion about the district training and exercise priorities involving planning for possible security events, shall we say, through tabletop planning, one that took place in April of this year, and there's another one that occurred at Fairmount as well. There was an Act 44 update, reference to the Safe to Say Something programs, and the 2021 safety report was cited, which I think the board would have reviewed. There's a reference to the updates involving counseling services and the planning that took place during a large-scale meeting in the same week, and also discussion of the Straight Talk programs being planned, and a review of the mental health updates and the program updates that was presented to the board within the last month or so. So it's essentially kind of a list of the various items on the agenda from that meeting.
Okay, thank you. So technology, Jim, has there
Yeah.
been a meeting?
So we have a meeting at 5:30 PM over Google Meet on Thursday. And the agenda is being sent out tomorrow, but one of the items on the agenda is to review the policy 815.5, which is our October 2021 draft of the social media policy. So we'll be sharing that with the committee members and ask them for their input on it.
Great, thank you. And I hope you'll be able to continue on that committee. I don't know if we want to let you get away that
Thank
easily.
you.
Yeah. Likewise with Scott on finance, if you're interested. So.
Sounds like voluntold.
Well, I was on it before ran
That's what I
for
was
school board,
thinking,
So
right.
I've probably been on it for 15 or 16 years now.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I'm term limited.
At this point, you are the institutional memory, right? Okay. So December 6th is our board reorganizational meeting, and we should be getting board meeting dates out to everyone in the near future for your review ahead of that meeting. And it'll be, we'll definitely be sending requests for your priorities in terms of appointments, and, you know, for each of the committee and liaison positions. And since we have so much turnover this time, yeah, it might take a little bit of time to sort those out. So it might be helpful to get everyone's preferences as early as possible so we can kind of have conversations with each other and figure out, try to make sure everybody gets their first or second choices at least. And let's see, so one of the major items on that agenda, which this is, I think this has happened in the past as well, when new board members are coming on and we have to start discussing right away the preliminary budget and whether or not we're going to adopt the opt-out resolution in order to say that we're going to not go over the Act 1 index, meaning that we would not be taking exceptions. And we need to make that decision in December, right? Randy? January. Okay, so we discuss it in December, and then we would need to make that decision relatively expeditiously. So we'll have some time for new board members to discuss with Randy and get a chance to get a sense of that process as soon as possible. Okay. And then with that, I would be, oh, I'm sorry, I want to remind everyone that tomorrow, November 16th, the board has a work session with students at the high school. It's in the, yes, and I want to.
Miriam.
Yeah, I recognize Miriam there for a moment, but it is in the small LGI, which is the auditorium. It used to be the old South Building auditorium. It's the one that is attached near the cafeteria, not the big performing arts center, but the other auditorium. Where we had board meetings in the summer. It was the South Building auditorium before we
Yep.
did the building renovation, and it became part of the new
Right
building.
next to culinary
Yeah.
arts.
Right,
Miriam,
not the
did you
one
have
that's
anything?
upstairs that's the.
Right.
No.
Yeah, so Miriam, you'll be there tomorrow, right?
Yes, I'll be there tomorrow. And I just
Good.
wanted to say, Leadership Council, everybody was informed and was
Right.
told to bring peers. So hopefully, on behalf of the board, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having this opportunity for students to give their voices, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope
Will that
to
be
have
on the
more in
morning
future.
announcements then as well to let students know?
Yes,
Yes.
Clarissa has me booked.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh, good.
So,
Thank you.
and it'll function as we have in the past, where students can bring their lunch in and we can spread out in that auditorium, but it'll be kind of three conversations. We'll have three stations based on the requests that the students shared with Amber, Amy, and me. And then it'll happen 3 times because there's 3 lunch shifts in the high school. So it's not just one meeting, so to speak.
Great. All right. So if there's anything that you want to touch base about between now and then, feel free to let me know too. So,
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Thanks,
you being
Miriam.
there and helping with this. Okay, so with that, I would like a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All right, so that's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, then we are adjourned.